Welcome to The Perspective. I'm Mike Sherbino. And if I say a certain date, something's going to pop into mind. If I say 9/11, you know exactly what I'm talking about. But if I also say October 7th, equally in the same way, you know what I'm talking about. What took place, the incredible massacre by Hamas and the people of Israel. Why was it? Why the carnage? Why the evil? Why the hatred? And we ask that question over and over again. And while I don't claim to be able to fully understand that, I have some insights. Today, I am delighted. I am truly honored to have Jonathan Feldstein with us. He is the president of Genesis 123 Foundation, and he is here to share with us his insights into the nation of Israel, what is happening, and we're going to be sharing with you an incredible gift that we want to make available to you for a donation in supporting the country of Israel. Jonathan, welcome to the program today. I'm just delighted that you're here. Thanks for coming on air.
Mike, thank you. I'm privileged and I'm deeply stirred by your introduction.
Well, you're not in Canada right now. Tell us where you're located right now.
I am in the Judean Mountains in a town called Efrat, just south of Jerusalem. From my balcony, we can see the center of Jerusalem, and on a clear day with the naked eye, you can even see the glimmering of the Dome of the Rock on the Temple Mount.
I can appreciate that because a few years ago, just before COVID hit, I was able to be in Israel. And as I was looking through this beautiful book called Israel the Miracle, I'm going to hold it up there. It just brought back so many memories to life, and I can't wait to get back to Israel to see things. But are the tourists coming right now with all the war that is going on, or has things just died off?
No, sadly, tourism has been crippled very seriously. There are a number of small, what they call solidarity trips that come for about a week, but the peak in tourism, and I knew the numbers. I interviewed the Minister of Tourism a month and a half ago. I don't remember specifically, but we were on target in 2023 to reach or continue the kind of records that we had been going. But tourism has been all but crippled. And the only saving grace, and this kind of gets into the situation of the war, is so many of the vacant hotels have been used to house evacuees from the Gaza border area, and still about 100,000 people who've been evacuated from their homes in the north living in hotels because it's not safe in their communities.
You know, the problem with this program, we need to stretch it out to 4 or 5 hours to have a conversation. But I'm going to ask you to do the impossible. Help us to understand the ethos. What are the people feeling right now in Israel? And have things settled a little bit from the initial terrorist attack, or are you feeling still right on the edge?
Um, when I came home 2 weeks ago, the trauma hit me immediately. And I was glad for that, to be honest, because I felt guilty being overseas, not really experiencing it. I have the app on my phone that tells me when there's a air raid siren in what part of the country. We are 40 miles east, north and east of Gaza, and we've had our share of rocket attacks. And in Jerusalem, where two of my kids live as well. Um, I think that now, just 6 months after the massacre and the beginning of this war, we're still in a state of trauma for sure. I think that most Israelis have not really gotten their arms around the grief that we're experiencing individually. People who lost loved ones, people who were injured, soldiers, over 250 soldiers have been killed just since the ground operation. We're all affected, even Israeli Arabs. There was a comment with friends just yesterday, the fact that many Israeli Arabs were killed. Yet yesterday there was a rocket attack from Lebanon, and a Druze resident of the Golan Heights was killed. So they're not distinguishing between Jews and non-Jewish Israelis, and we're all experiencing tremendous trauma. The upside of it is that we're experiencing tremendous solidarity. Trauma for the Jewish people that I've never experienced before in my life, and solidarity maybe like never before, with the possible exception of the Six-Day War in 1967, but I don't remember that. I'm too young.
Well, you know what? I am a couple years older than you, and my dad had just stepped down from the military at that point, and he was getting prepared to be called back up because he thought that he would be going to Israel, that there would be another world war break out. And I remember that when I was about 7 or 8, hearing this rumbling in our home and not understanding it, it put terror in my own heart. Uh, I want you to talk about the terror and help us to understand what people feel like every day when you get up. Are you literally looking over your shoulder or waiting for an attack, or do you become climatized to it?
So I'll be honest, I tell people today, which encourages tourism, that if you don't follow the news, and I'm obsessed with it, but if you don't follow the news, if you don't pay attention to what's going on in your phone, where I am and in most of the country today, you would not know that there's a war going on in Gaza and that there's a threat of one. And possibly by the time this conversation is aired, we may fully be in a war with Hezbollah in the north. That's anticipated because of what's going on. The we're at a pause at the moment in the fighting in Gaza, so we are not waking up every morning to the news where the media announces that it's been cleared for publication, and then they go on to list a series of names of young men actually even into their early 50s, who were serving in reserves and have been killed in the war. But every day, and today multiple times in the day, there are rockets that have been coming in, rockets and drones that are coming in. And I can't speak to how that makes everyone feel, but it angers me. Everybody who I know, and I don't mean this rhetorically, everybody believes that there will be, and sadly, and I really have to emphasize that, must be a war to finish Hezbollah as well, because the threat that they pose to Israel is much greater than Hamas in Gaza. And
Hmm.
that creates a great deal of fear. And I'll just say one more illustration. We just purchased from Amazon a solar panel that's about a meter square. So we can put it out on our balcony. And when that anticipated war with Hezbollah comes, and when the power grid is knocked down, we'll at least be able to charge small appliances and not be completely without electricity, albeit that we live on the seventh floor of an apartment building, which will make getting in and out a little more challenging.
Okay, so that just creates all sorts of thoughts in my mind. And I want to come back to some of those feelings as we unpack it, especially even for Canada. And you know the story I'm going to share in our second part of the interview today about a friend of mine in Ottawa that just kind of caught me off guard. We'll come to that in a moment. I want you to take a minute and tell me about this incredible book. I refer to it as a coffee table book. That's where it's going
Yes.
to be going in my house. And I've just got it for a day and a half, and I've been flipping through it and just I'm just soaking it in. It's powerful. Talk to me about it and how people can get a hold of it.
Thank you, Mike. So anyone can go get the book at israelthemiracle.com. And please, when you do, to use the coupon code Jonathan10 as my gift for a 10% discount. It's not a cheap book. It costs $75, $1 an essay. And that's exactly what it is. It was published in celebration of Israel's 75th year, which we're still celebrating. Certainly, we never anticipated that there would be a war, but God gave me this vision, which I contacted a publisher, amazing publisher based in the US. And I reached out. I said, hey, what do you think about putting together a book of 75 essays by Christian leaders all over the world, and it really is all over the world, about why Israel's significant to them and therefore should be to all Christians. And he thought it was a great idea. And Mike, this is my first book. I've never done a book before. If I had known what I knew, I might have been afraid from doing it. We've compiled an unbelievable list of authors who are writing personally, and I was terribly afraid that there would be redundancy in their essays, that every third one would be writing about the verse Genesis 12:3, I will bless those who bless you, or be a watchman on the wall, or for such a time as this. And you don't see that. You see personal, intimate, real great thoughts. And because it's a coffee table book, it's not just a book that you read 1,000 words at a time and then finish the book and put it up on a shelf. But in fact, it's a book with which you interact, and you just explain that. And a friend of mine was just here visiting me today, and we talked about how we need to get our grandchildren, even those who don't read, to begin to interact with the book. And the book is stunning. The fact that we completed it from conception, and I use the word deliberately, to delivery of the electronic file to the printer It took 9 months.
It's
That doesn't
remarkable,
happen.
Jonathan. And I'm going to put in my own plug. I mean, this is here at my office. I'm taking it home at the end of the program today, and we're just going to be enjoying it. I can hardly wait to show some of my friends this as we celebrate together over this weekend. People that are coming to our house, it is just a beautiful thing. And the people that you have writing and what they write is exactly what you've said. They're not redundant. It's just fresh. It's appealing, and it just captures what I feel is the heartbeat of what you're
Right.
sharing.
We
You're
got
listening right now to The
people from their
Perspective.
20s until their 90s.
Yeah. Folks, we're going to be right back with Jonathan. Stay with us. You're listening to The Perspective. Welcome back to The Perspective. I'm Mike Sherbino, and with me today is Jonathan Feldstein. And Jonathan, so glad you're here. We're just talking about this beautiful book, Israel, the Miracle, that has just come out. I want to encourage you to go to Amazon and get a copy of it, or you can write to the Genesis 123 Foundation, and you can get it that way. And Jonathan says that there's a 10% discount. What's the code we have to use, Jonathan?
Jonathan 10, but the 10% discount only works at israelthemiracle.com, not at Amazon.
Okay, so Israel the Miracle, forget Amazon for now. John, I was going to say, yeah, Jonathan, let me read to you something that startled me. I received it late October from my friend Alan Gilman, who is a Messianic Bible teacher in Ottawa. He's got several children, and his one son, Josh, wrote this, and it caught me off guard in that it seemed to explain some of the heart of Jewish people. And I'm just going to read it and going to let you comment. So Josh writes these words: even if they aren't trying now, you read history and you see that every few generations, at the very least, some group tries to kill or at least hurt a lot of Jewish people. We may like your posts that say never again, but we never fully believe it. On Saturday, October 7th, we're reminded that we were right not to fully believe it. He said, more Jews died in one day than any day since the Holocaust. And the reality is that while we felt shock, we didn't necessarily feel surprise. And then he said this: when my sisters were quite young, they used to play hiding from the Nazis. This wasn't hide and seek. They would just pick a place to hide under a couch, behind a freezer, and just lie still for hours. And once they hid in our van for way too long and my parents couldn't find them, and they got in a lot of trouble. They were genuinely playing. It was truly a game to them. But it's just to hammer home the point that Jewish children grow up with the Holocaust being a part of our history and an intrinsic understanding that at some point we may need to hide again. Your comments. Talk to me about that.
It's very hard to respond because it's so emotional. It's so true, with the one exception that that was written by somebody outside of Israel. Here we don't need to hide. We know who our enemies are. I'll tell you, when my oldest grandson, who was 5, was born, I looked at him. I was the first one out, other than my daughter and son-in-law, to hold him. And I looked at him and I said, he's going to be a combat soldier like my son-in-law. And in 13 or 14 years, with all likelihood, he will be. And we experience that here with pride because we have the ability to defend ourselves. One of the scariest moments, one of the hardest moments in my life, outside of the death of both of my parents, was October 7th, when my 24-year-old son, newlywed son, came home at 4 o'clock that afternoon and said he had 10 minutes to get into his uniform before he was being picked up being taken down to the Gaza border to meet up with his unit. So this is all true. This is what we experience. But you probably know this, Mike. You're connected to Jewish things, biblical things, of course. Every Passover, we're recounting our celebration of liberation from Egypt 3,500 years ago, and we're meant to. And this goes to the tone of that message. We're meant to experience it as if we too were slaves leaving Egypt at that time. But there's also something that I had opened on my phone before we started speaking. There's I don't know if it's a prayer, but a statement that we make every year, every Jewish home that celebrates Passover and has at least one or maybe two seders, it's a prayer called V'hisha Amda, which in English means in every generation. And the text goes like this. Oops, I just lost it.
I'd love to hear it.
Yeah, it just went away. Technology.
That's okay. You'll find
In
it.
each and every generation, they rise up against us to destroy us. And the Holy One, blessed be He, rescued us from their hands. So that's important because not only are we acknowledging what you just read, every generation. I don't think that without exception, but we are also acknowledging that our fate, our trust, and our faith is in our Creator. And as bad as things may be, and God doesn't promise it's going to be easy and it's not going to be perfect, but He promised many things and prophecies relating to Israel and the Jewish people coming home here. And we're living that out. I moved to Israel 20 years ago from the US. We're living that out. And as challenging as things are, we keep our faith. It's what makes us the fifth happiest or most satisfied country in the world, according to a recent poll. And we're putting our trust in God because we know, yes, we have a great army, thanks to God. And yes, we have unity, thanks to God. But ultimately, He is our bottom line.
I so appreciate you saying that God is your bottom line as He is for me, the Lord. Um, let's talk about some of the political things. We only have a couple minutes left in the program today. We're seeing a lot of rallies here in Canada, pro-Palestinian. We see the hatred being stirred up. You were recently in the States, but you didn't seem to experience that. And I'm wondering if there's a projection from the news, whether it's biased, left wing, or right wing. Um, is there a sense of solidarity among your people in Israel right now?
There's a great sense of solidarity among Israelis right now. I just want to correct you on one thing, although maybe I'm missing something. To the extent that the rallies taking place are pro-Palestinian, I wish that were the case. They're really pro-Hamas because I'm pro-Palestinian. Our neighbors are Palestinian Arabs, and I wish that they would be. I wish that they would prosper and live in peace with us. But we no longer trust that, and because we no longer trust that, and we are still experiencing the aftermath of the slaughter that's ongoing. Um, yeah, there's tremendous unity. There's tremendous solidarity. The tremendous divisiveness that we were experiencing a year ago at this time, all political, not different from what happens south of the Canadian border, very political, but that's been put aside because again, through something tremendously horrible, we are aware that we are in another generation. They're rising up to try to destroy us, but we are and will be victorious, thanks to God.
Well, and I'm glad that you corrected that thing that you are pro-Palestinian. That's important to hear because oftentimes it's a small minority that taints it for everybody else. And I know as well that there are many Palestinian Christians who are they're literally in the crossfire, as so many other innocent people are. Um, take another moment and just talk to us about the book, how people can get it, and what's the money being used for?
Thank you. So IsraelTheMiracle.com is the website, and use the discount code Jonathan10. The book, again, one of the things that's so amazing is that we have what I have heard people referring to as Pat Robertson's last testimony on Israel. We moved his essay, which is powerful in and of itself, to the front outside of alphabetical order, because just before we sent it to the printer, he passed away. And we wanted to honor him. But we've got some tremendous essays. If you read in the back of the book, it lists the kinds of programs that we at the Genesis 123 Foundation are supporting anyway, and the proceeds go to that. Now, since the war, we've just narrowed that to be things relating to our Israel emergency campaign. And I'll share with you, just yesterday, I received the first copies of the second printing because we have had enough of a demand that the five or 6,000 that we sent to the U.S. Initially are mostly sold, and the second printing. But here's what's amazing: it's not just that the proceeds go to fund projects here in Israel that bless Israelis of all backgrounds. We did print this in conjunction with the print shop at Kibbutz Be'eri, which you probably know is one of the communities that was overrun and most devastated by the terrorists on October 7th. So even just when people are paying for a copy of that, the printing that we've already paid for goes to that community, which is, to me, just a great blessing.
Jonathan, unfortunately, our time is up, but I want to extend an invitation for you to come back at any time. We'd love to hear more. Thank you for being with us today.
Thank you for giving me the opportunity, Mike. God bless you.
And you too.
Will you donate 2 hours of your time? Crossroads Prayer Center is seeking people with a heart willing to join in the amazing work God is doing through prayer. Providing over 1,300 prayer interactions daily, Crossroads Prayer Partners speak biblical truth and words of life over people's need. Join in God's transforming work through prayer and enrich your faith. Learn more at crossroads.ca/prayervolunteer.
On a number of occasions, I've had to have my knees fixed. I thought I was a hockey superstar, but I wasn't. But I still busted up my knees, ligaments, cartilage, all that good stuff. I had to go to the doctor, to the surgeon, and say, "Can you fix me up?" And he said, "Yes." And then as soon as the surgery was over, I thought I could just walk right out. But no, there was crutches, and then sometimes even a cane, and there was therapy. It took time for it to heal. We come to the teaching of Jesus on the Sermon on the Mount, and we're still in the first verse where he says, "Happy are the poor in spirit." It just seems like an oxymoron. Poor in spirit and to be happy? Really? What has to happen is we need major surgery. You and I are guilty of looking at all the stuff the world has to give us to make us happy. And whether you're a follower of Jesus or not, you know this. It doesn't make you happy. Maybe for the moment, it gives you some sense of exhilaration or joy if you have a certain thing that you can buy or go on a trip or whatever. But at the end, you still have to go on with life. There's something deeper that we long for, and that's found in understanding the purpose for which God has created us. But Jesus said that we truly will become happy, meaning the sense of a joy-filled life, when we understand that in our own strength, we can't do it. We desperately need God. We need the master surgeon to come in and retool our heart, our mindset. And then learning to walk in that new way is so important. And the first step towards recovery, the first healing choice you have to make is the reality choice. And you know what that is? It's where you realize and accept the fact that you are not God and that you need someone to help you, someone much greater than you, to overcome your hurts and hang-ups and habits. I love how Rick Warren paraphrased that. We need someone to help us. You see, there are consequences if we think that we are God. And the consequences of playing God is simply this. We fear that someone will discover us for who we are. Hey, friend, God already knows who you are. He says, "Come to me with your brokenness." We also find ourselves emotionally and physically spent. The psalmist wrote, he said, "My strength evaporated like water on a sunny day, until I finally admitted all my sins to you and stopped trying to hide them." That's becoming poor in spirit. And folks, you and I will never succeed. You'll never succeed in life if you try to hide your sins. The Bible tells us that we're to confess them and give them up, and then God will show mercy to you. That's found in Proverbs 28, verse 13. My friends, to be poor in spirit is to acknowledge our spiritual bankruptcy. Willpower is not enough. "Oh, I'm going to do it." Or good intentions are not enough. It's like saying, the teenager to their parent, "Okay, tomorrow morning, I'll make my bed, but could you give me my allowance in advance?" Folks, it doesn't work that way. You and I need another source of power. You and I, we desperately need God. Take to heart what Proverbs tells us in chapter 3, verse 34. It says there that God mocks proud mockers, but he gives grace to the humble. So what do we do with all of this? We come back to what Jesus was saying when he was there on the mountain, as he's talking to them, and he gives us talk. He says, happy are the poor in spirit. You want to be happy, and I get that. But happiness is dependent on external things. There is a deeper happiness that Jesus was talking about. It was a joy that's based in surrendering to him and living out the purpose for which God created you to do and to live. And many times we hear this over and over again, people looking to find meaning and fulfillment. I'm intrigued with the number of people, famous people, who in the later stages of life are turning to Christ. I think of one well-known professional wrestler who said, it's like my whole life has finally found purpose. It wasn't in winning all the accolades of the crowds when he was winning in the ring, but it was realizing that he was now loved by God, that he was cared for, that he was precious to God. And that's when we understand what Jesus means. Happy are the poor in spirit. When we come to the end of ourselves and say, God, I'm at the end of my rope, but I'm going to look to you. I'm going to believe that you are going to take me to a place I've never been before, a place of surrender to you and ultimate satisfaction as I live out the purpose for which you created me for. I hope you've been enjoying the program today. And as we've been talking about Israel, you must be the same as me. Our hearts are just gripped with what we hear. But we're still dealing with our own issues, your issues, whether it's health or finance or relationship. And you're wondering, I can't process Israel. I'm just dealing with what I have in my own life. I want you to know that God is greater. And the principles that we find in the scriptures are there for the nation of Israel, just as they are for you and I today. That as David wrote in the psalmist, that even though we walk through the valley of the shadow of death, we'll fear no evil, for he is with us. Do you know if God is with you? You can be sure of that today. Why not open up your heart to his offer of forgiveness and love through Jesus Christ? He's waiting to be your Savior, your Lord and friend. You can ask him today to come and dwell within you, and he will. And if you pray that simple prayer, if you ask him, call us, 855-910-6297. Thank you for watching today.